The human had no idea how they ended up with an alien roommate, but here they were sharing a cramped apartment with Threx, a towering Silphari covered in shimmering exoskeletal plates. The interspecies exchange program had promised cultural enlightenment, but mostly it meant arguing over thermostat settings and deciphering each other's weird habits. The human had expected something exciting when they signed up for this, a chance to learn about alien technology, maybe see new worlds, but instead, it was a lot of trying to explain why humans needed soft chairs and why food shouldn't glow under ultraviolet light. Threx had their quirks too. They were nocturnal, which meant the human often woke up to strange clicking sounds in the dark. Their plates changed color depending on their mood, which would have been cool if the human had any idea what the colors actually meant. One time they turned bright orange, and the human thought it was anger. Turns out it was just indigestion. And then there was the humming. When Threx was relaxed or concentrating, they emitted this deep thrumming sound that made everything in the room vibrate. At first, it was unsettling, but over time the human had found it oddly soothing, like sitting next to a living speaker set to low-frequency white noise. Despite the oddities, they had gotten along well enough. Threx was brilliant in a logical, methodical way. They always had a precise way of speaking and moving, like every action had been calculated 5 steps ahead. But today something was different. The human noticed it the moment Threx walked through the door. Their normally smooth plates were twitching, their bioluminescence dimmed, their posture stiff. Threx was stressed. "Rough day?" the human asked casually as they leaned back on the couch, staring at the alien. Their job involved working with Silphari engineers, and while the human didn't understand half of what they did, they knew that stress was universal. Threx hesitated, their mandibles clicking softly before they finally spoke. "The calculations for the latest planetary stabilization array were flawed. We must restart the entire process. It is inefficient and frustrating." The human winced. "Sounds rough. Anything I can do to help?" Threx stared at them, tilting their heads slightly. "I do not believe you possess the necessary expertise in gravitational field theory, but the thought is appreciated." The human smirked. "Not what I meant. I meant, like, do you need to vent? Do you want to punch something? Do you want to drink? Do Silphari even drink alcohol? Actually, never mind. Probably a bad idea if you do. But seriously, you look tense. And when humans get tense, we do this thing called a massage, helps loosen the muscles, or whatever. Do you want one?" Threx blinked at them, slowly considering their words for a moment. "Explain massage." The human gestured for Threx to sit down. "Look, it's just pressing into muscles to relieve stress. It's like kneading dough, but less violent and less bread involved." Threx hesitated, then after a long pause stepped forward and lowered themselves onto the floor, their large form making the human feel almost comically small in comparison. "Very well, proceed." Grinning, the human cracked their knuckles. This was going to be interesting. They placed their hands on Threx's back, running their fingers along the alien's plates. The texture was strange, cool, and smooth like polished stone, but with just enough give to feel somewhat organic. The human started slow pressing into the spaces between the plates, working their way along the alien's rigid spine. Almost immediately, Threx let out a low, deep sound, a resonance so powerful the air itself seemed to vibrate around them. The human paused. "Are that normal?" Threx did not respond. At first, their body had gone completely still, their plates beginning to shift color, darkening from dull gray to deep indigo, then to a shimmering purple. Their humming grew stronger, the vibrations making the human's fingertips tingle. Before they could say anything, Threx let out a breathy clicking noise, a sound the human had never heard before. "Continue." The human did as they were told, pressing deeper, using their thumbs to knead into the alien's structure. And it was almost hypnotic watching Threx's colors shift with every movement, their plates rippling in cascading waves of violet and blue. The vibrations grew more intense, as if they were echoing outward, filling the space around them. The human chuckled. "Wow, you are really tense, huh?" Threx let out another noise, somewhere between a hum and a purr, their body shuddering slightly beneath the human's touch. Their hands dug in deeper, working along the ridges of the exoskeleton, unaware that every press, every movement was triggering something far deeper within Threx's biology, something ancient, instinctual, and entirely beyond the human's understanding. When the human finally pulled back, stretching their fingers, they laughed. "Well, that should help a bit, right?" Frex did not answer immediately, their plates still flickering with shifting hues of violet and deep sapphire. When they finally turned their head, their gaze locked onto the human with an intensity that made them suddenly feel like they had just stepped into something far bigger than they had realized. Their voice was lower, softer than usual. "You honor me greatly." The human blinked. "Honor you greatly," they repeated hesitantly. "What does that mean?" Frex straightened slowly, their plates still shimmering, the same deep color, voice steady, but carrying something unreadable within it. "Among my people, what you have done is not casual, it is significant, the first step of a bonding ritual." The human felt their stomach drop like stepping off a cliff. "Wait, what?" The human sat frozen as Frex's words echoed in their mind. The first step of a bonding ritual. Their hands were still hovering over Frex's back, fingers tingling from the lingering vibrations. But now every motion, every touch felt like a massive mistake, a mistake they hadn't even realized they were making. "Bonding ritual," the human finally managed to say, their voice uncertain. "You mean like a friendship thing, right? Like we are bonding as roommates or teammates, or something casual and completely not serious, right?" Frex turned their head, slightly studying the human, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim apartment light, their plates still shimmering in a slow, hypnotic pattern. "A bonding ritual is a formalized process in Sci-Fi culture. It is the means by which we choose a mate." The human's brain short-circuited. "Mate, as in romantic, mate, as in permanent, as in oh no." The human pulled their hands back, as if they had just touched a live wire, suddenly hyper-aware of every moment leading up to this, every time they had playfully bumped into Frex, every time they had laughed at their dry humor, every shared meal, every casual touch. It all replayed in their head now with horrifying clarity. Okay. The human took a deep breath, trying to piece together an escape route from this situation before it spiraled further. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. When humans give massages, it's just for relaxation, nothing more, nothing cultural or ritualistic or permanent." Frex was silent, their bioluminescent plates dimming slightly. "I see," they finally said, their voice unreadable. "But the ritual has been initiated. Once begun, it must be completed or formally rejected." The human stiffened. "Okay, so there is an option to reject it, right?" Frex studied them, their mandibles clicking softly. "Rejection is rare among my people. It is seen as an insult, not only to the individual, but to the ritual itself." The human exhaled, rubbing their face with their hands. "Great. So either I accidentally just agree to an interspecies marriage, or I deeply offend my 7-foot-tall alien roommate. Awesome, fantastic, totally normal Tuesday night." Frex tilted their head slightly at the human's muttered words. "I do not understand your meaning." The human groaned. "Okay, look, I didn't mean to start anything, I swear. I was just trying to help you relax because you seem stressed. But if rejecting this thing is going to be a huge deal, then what happens if we just don't do anything? If we ignore it, does it just go away?" Frex's plates flickered between shades of deep blue and violet. "No, once the first step is completed, it remains the beginning of an incomplete bond. It would be seen as waiting, not rejection, and waiting indefinitely is not acceptable in my culture." The human sighed loudly. "So what happens if I reject it?" Frex's mandibles twitched. "It would be seen as a personal failing among my peers. My status would diminish significantly." "Great, no pressure at all, just a life-altering decision made by accident because of a back massage." The human wanted to slam their head against a wall, but resisted the urge. Instead, they ran a hand through their hair and looked at Frex, who was still watching them with that unreadable expression. "Okay, let's say hypothetically I wanted to complete the ritual. What does that actually mean? What else am I supposed to do?" Frex's plates flickered a different color this time, a pale, soft blue. It was the first time the human had ever seen that shade. "Among my kind, bonding is not immediate. It is a process. There are stages of trust, understanding, shared experiences. We would spend time together in deeper connection over time through certain gestures, like the one you have already done. Our bond would solidify." The human hesitated. The words sounded almost familiar, almost human. Despite the alien context, it didn't sound like being trapped in some permanent relationship. It sounded like a choice. They swallowed hard and finally asked, "And if I say yes, does that mean we're together, like dating in human terms?" Frex's plates pulsed slightly. "Dating is a human concept. It does not fully align with our customs. But if that comparison helps you understand, then yes, a bonding ritual is akin to your concept of courtship. The humans stared at them, realization sinking in all the way down to their bones. If they completed this thing, if they actually agreed to go through with it, it wouldn't be immediate. It wouldn't be some forced arrangement. It would just be the start of something they could step into one moment at a time. They took a deep breath, heart pounding against their ribs. Okay, then hypothetically speaking, what if I wanted to think about it? Frex nodded slowly. That would be acceptable, but know this, once the process has begun, I will not seek another bond with anyone else until you have made your choice. For as long as you need, I will wait. The weight of those words settled over the human heavier than they expected. It wasn't just about tradition or culture anymore. It was about Threx, about the way they looked at them, about the trust they were offering in that moment. And the human realized something terrifying. They didn't want to reject it, not yet, not until they understood what they were really saying no to. They exhaled, running a hand through their hair. Okay, I need time, but I won't just ignore it, and I won't reject it without thinking. Threx's plates pulsed a deep, brilliant blue. Understood, they said softly. The humans swallowed hard, realizing that whatever happened next, nothing between them would ever be the same. The humans sat on the couch, staring at the ceiling, their mind racing through the events of the last few hours. They had signed up for the interspecies exchange program to learn about alien cultures, to maybe make a few friends. Along the way, what they had not signed up for was accidentally engaging in an alien mating ritual. And yet here they were sitting across from Threx, who was waiting patiently, their glowing eyes never leaving the human, as if studying their every breath. So the human said, finally breaking the silence, just to be clear, if I complete this ritual, if I go through with this whole bonding thing, then what exactly does that make us in your culture, like partners, or is it something more official? Frex tilted their head, their bioluminescent plates shifting to a soft pale blue. Among my people, a bonded pair is considered a unit. It is not merely companionship, it is a lifelong connection. Two individuals who choose to exist together in harmony and mutual benefit. The process is not instant, but once completed, it is permanent. The humans swallowed hard. No pressure. Then Threx emitted a low vibrating hum. I would not pressure you, this is your choice. The ritual has begun, but it is incomplete. If you do not wish to continue, then I will accept that. However, if you do wish to continue, we must take the next step. The human leaned forward, elbows on their knees, and looked Threx in the eye. Okay, and what exactly is the next step? Please tell me. It doesn't involve some kind of weird alien wedding ceremony, because I am not prepared for that. Frex's plates flickered with amusement. No, not yet. The next step involves an act of mutual understanding, a demonstration of trust among my kind. The bonding process requires moments of shared vulnerability. The human raised an eyebrow. That is incredibly vague. Threx considered this for a moment before responding. For Sylphari, a bonding pair must reveal something personal, something hidden that others do not know about them. This ensures that both parties are entering the bond with full understanding of one another. The human exhaled. Okay, so let me get this straight. I have to tell you some deep personal secret in order to move this thing forward, and then you do the same, and that's part of the ritual. Frex nodded. Precisely. The human leaned back, staring at the ceiling again. Deep personal secrets were not something they handed out freely. They had friends, sure, people they joked around with, but actual vulnerability that was rare. Still, if they were really considering this, if they wanted to take this choice seriously, then maybe it wasn't the worst idea. All right, fine, the human said. After a long pause, I'll go first, but you better go next. And it better be good. Threx inclined their head. In agreement, I will honor my word. The human took a breath, then another before speaking. I don't like feeling like I don't belong anywhere, they said, finally, voice quieter than they expected. I signed up for this exchange program because I thought maybe if I learned enough, if I met the right people, if I saw more of the universe, I'd figure out where I fit. But so far, all I've learned is that no matter where I go, I still feel out of place. The words hung in the air, heavier than they expected. They had never said that out loud, not to anyone, not even themselves. But Threx did not react with shock or pity. Instead, they simply nodded, as if accepting the truth of the statement without judgment. I understand, Threx said after a moment. Among my people, I'm considered different. I do not think as others do. I calculate too much. I hesitate. I question tradition. I was placed in this program because they did not know where else to place me. I do not fully belong either. The human looked at Threx. Really, I would have thought you had everything figured out. Threx's plates shimmered for a moment, then dimmed. That is an illusion I maintain for others. The human let out a breath of laughter. So we're both just wandering around pretending we have a plan, when really we're both just lost. Threx's mandibles twitched in something that almost looked like a smile. It would appear so. For the first time since the misunderstanding began, the human felt something shift inside them, something that wasn't panic or fear. Maybe, just maybe, they were not as alone in this as they thought. The human sat in silence, staring at Threx, letting the weight of their shared words settle between them. They had expected awkwardness, maybe regret after admitting something so personal, but instead there was an odd sense of relief, like some invisible barrier between them had crumbled. So the human said, finally leaning back against the couch, "What now?" Threx watched them with their usual unreadable gaze, their bioluminescent plates still pulsing with soft blue. "Now we continue the process." The human let out a small laugh. "You keep saying that like it means something specific, but you have to remember I have no idea what I'm doing here. I don't know what the next step is. I don't even know if I should be doing this at all." Threx was silent for a moment, as if considering their words. Then they moved with deliberate slowness, lowering themselves to sit beside the human, rather than across from them. The proximity was new, closer than they usually sat, and the human became hyper-aware of the way Threx's exoskeletal plates seemed to shift, slightly adjusting, as if settling into place. "I will not ask you to decide now," Threx said, voice calm, "and even the bonding ritual does not demand immediate certainty, only willingness to continue." The human let out a slow breath. "So it's like dating with extra steps." Threx's mandibles twitched. "Dating is an insufficient term for what this is, but if it helps you understand, then yes, it is a process of gradual acceptance and deepening connection. Each stage must be completed before the bond can be finalized." The human ran a hand through their hair. "Okay, so if I don't back out, what's the next stage? Is this where we exchange blood vows, or carve our names into a sacred rock, or something?" Threx made a low humming noise, an indicator the human was slowly learning meant amusement. "No, the next stage is simpler. It requires an act of mutual synchronization." The human blinked. "Synchronization like what? Dancing? Because I'm going to tell you right now, I have 2 left feet and no sense of rhythm." Threx turned their head slightly. "That is not the kind of synchronization I mean." The human frowned. Then, before they could ask, Threx reached out with one of their clawed hands and lightly pressed 2 fingers against the human's wrist. The touch was cool, unexpected, but not uncomfortable. "Sylphari communicate not only through speech, but through resonance," Threx explained. "Our bodies generate specific vibrational frequencies attuned to those closest to us. Bonding pairs develop a shared resonance, a frequency unique to them. It is how we ensure harmony within the bond." The human raised an eyebrow. "So you want me to just vibrate at the right frequency?" Threx tilted their head in what the human had learned was their equivalent of a nod. "You will not need to do anything. I will adjust my resonance to align with yours if you allow it." The human hesitated, looking down at where Threx's fingers were resting against their skin. There was nothing invasive about the touch, no pressure, just a simple point of contact. They exhaled. "All right, go for it." Almost immediately, a strange sensation rippled through them. It wasn't painful or even unpleasant, just unexpected, a deep, subtle vibration traveling up their arm, like standing too close to a speaker during a concert. It wasn't just sound, it was something deeper, something that seemed to hum through their very bones. The human shuddered slightly as the feeling settled. Threx's eyes were closed, their plates shifting through shades of blue and violet. As the resonance stabilized, after a long moment, they withdrew their hand. "It is done," Threx said simply. "Our frequencies are now aligned." The human flexed their fingers, feeling the lingering tingle. "Well, that was weird, not bad, just weird." Threx regarded them with calm patience. "It is a significant step in the bonding process. Our bodies now recognize each other on a fundamental level." The human exhaled, rubbing the back of their neck. "Great, so now my body knows we're vibing. What does that mean practically? Do I get superpowers or something?" Threx's plates flickered with amusement. "No, but you may begin to notice certain changes over time: increased awareness of my presence, heightened sensitivity to emotional shifts, minor subconscious synchronization in movement and thought patterns. The human frowned, so basically we're starting to get in sync with each other, correct? The human sat back, letting out a slow breath. That's a lot to take in, but I guess I've already come this far. Threx nodded, then we proceed. The humans sat still, their mind racing with the weight of everything Threx had just said: synchronization, increased awareness, subconscious alignment. It all sounded like something out of a sci-fi novel, except this was real. This was happening. They had agreed to continue this bonding ritual, and now their body was apparently tuned to Threx, like some kind of living frequency receiver. So the human said, after a long pause, what happens if I suddenly start humming at the wrong frequency? Do I explode or something? Threx's plates flickered with amusement. No, but you may experience discomfort. If our resonance falls out of alignment, it would be akin to a persistent irritation, like an itch beneath the skin, or the feeling that something is just slightly off. The human shuddered. Great, so now my body will literally tell me if we're not vibing anymore. No pressure at all. Threx tilted their head. Correct, though it is unlikely that will happen now, but the process has stabilized. The human exhaled, rubbing their temples. Okay, so now that we're apparently cinched up, what's the next step? Do I have to learn some kind of secret handshake or perform a ritual dance? Because I should warn you, I am really bad at dancing. Threx emitted a low hum, an indicator the human was slowly recognizing as amusement. No, the next step is a test of instinct. The human blinked. Instinct. Yes, among my people, instinct is highly valued as a measure of compatibility. Bonding pairs must demonstrate an ability to anticipate and respond to each other without verbal instruction. It is a demonstration of trust and understanding. The human crossed their arms. So let me guess, I close my eyes, and you try to catch me before I hit the ground or something. Threx's mandibles twitched in what the human was beginning to recognize as the Sylphari equivalent of a smirk. Not quite, but the concept is similar. We will engage in an activity that requires unspoken coordination, something that will reveal whether we are attuned on a deeper level. The human narrowed their eyes. And what activity is that exactly? Threx stood, unfolding their long limbs with fluid grace. Follow me. The human hesitated, but curiosity won out. With a sigh, they pushed themselves up and followed Threx out of the common room, through the hallway, and into the training area. It was a simple space, meant for practicing combat maneuvers or physical conditioning. Oh no, the human muttered. Please don't tell me this involves me getting punched in the face. Threx's plates pulsed with amusement. No physical harm will come to you if you trust me. The human huffed, not exactly reassuring, but all right, what do I have to do? Threx gestured toward the center of the room. Stand there, I will begin. The human took position, shifting awkwardly as Threx moved to stand opposite them. That Sylphari's posture was relaxed, but there was something calculated about the way they were watching their every movement. When I move, you must react, Threx said. Do not think, simply respond. The human frowned, confused, but before they could ask what that meant, Threx moved faster than the human expected. Their form a blur as they lunged to the side, not toward the human, but around them, circling their position. Instinct kicked in before thought could intervene. The human twisted, moving in the opposite direction, keeping Threx in their line of sight without even realizing what they were doing. Good, Threx said, their voice even again. Before the human could process the compliment, Threx shifted again, this time feinting left before pivoting right. Without thinking, the human mirrored them, matching the movement without missing a beat. Time blurred as the strange dance continued, Threx shifting patterns, moving unpredictably, yet somehow the human was keeping up, reacting without hesitation, without thought. It was like something in their brain had clicked into place, a rhythm that had been there all along, but was only now making itself known. Finally, Threx halted their bioluminescent plates, shifting to a deep shade of blue, their version of approval. You're adapting quickly, they said. This is promising. The human was panting slightly, heart pounding from the unexpected exertion. Wait, I just did that without even thinking, correct? The human let out a breath of laughter. Okay, that was actually kind of cool, so what does that mean for the ritual? Threx stepped closer. It means we are progressing faster than anticipated. The human swallowed, suddenly very aware of how close Threx was, their glowing eyes studying them with something unreadable. So what now? Now we prepare for the next stage. The humans stood still, their breath steadying as Threx watched them with that same unreadable intensity. Their mind was still catching up to what had just happened, how their body had moved without conscious effort, how they had responded to Threx without needing to think about it. It was like some part of them had already accepted the bond before their mind could catch up. So the human said, after a long moment, what exactly does the next stage involve? Because every time I think I know what to expect, you hit me with something completely different. Threx's plates shimmered, shifting through soft blue and violet. The next stage requires endurance. The human let out a dry laugh. Great, so this is the part where you tell me we have to go on some kind of spirit quest through the wilderness, or spend the night meditating under a waterfall. Threx tilted their head slightly. That is not entirely inaccurate. The human stopped laughing. Wait, you're serious? Threx nodded. Among my people, bonding pairs must complete a trial together, something that requires persistence and trust. Traditionally, this involves a journey through unpredictable terrain where we must rely on each other to succeed. It is not simply a test of physical endurance, but of unity. The human groaned. Please tell me this doesn't involve climbing a mountain or running through an alien jungle, because I am not that kind of person. Threx's mandibles twitched. No such extremes are required. The trial must be suited to the individuals involved. For us, I believe something more suited to our existing strengths is appropriate. The human raised an eyebrow. Oh yeah, and what exactly does that mean? Threx gestured for them to follow. Walking toward a panel on the far wall, they placed one clawed hand against it, and the floor beneath them vibrated softly before shifting panels, sliding away to reveal an opening below. The human peered inside and immediately stepped back. Is that a zero-gravity chamber? Correct, Threx said, stepping onto the platform. Bonding pairs must navigate an unpredictable environment while remaining connected. In this case, we must maintain proximity and coordination while adapting to the shifting conditions within the chamber. The human hesitated. So basically, you want us to float around in zero and not crash into the walls? Sounds easy enough. Threx's plates pulsed with quiet amusement. You will find that ease is an illusion. Before the human could respond, Threx stepped inside the chamber and gestured for them to follow. After a deep breath, they did as they were told. The moment their feet left the platform, they felt the shift, gravity no longer pulling them down, their bodies suddenly weightless and drifting. The chamber activated immediately, panels shifting around them, creating artificial currents of motion, small pulses of force, altering their trajectory, making it impossible to remain still. The human flailed slightly as they felt themselves spinning. This is a terrible idea. I take it back. Let's go climb a mountain instead. Threx reached out one clawed hand, grabbing the human's wrist before they could drift too far away. Remain calm, to not fight the motion, adjust to it. The human took a breath, trying to steady themselves, feeling Threx's grip anchoring them. After a moment, they let their body relax, allowing the strange currents of motion to guide them instead of resisting. Better, Threx said, their voice steady. Now we must remain within reach of each other, no matter what the chamber throws at us. Almost as if responding to their words, the chamber shifted again. Small propulsion bursts, sending them both in different directions. The human reacted without thinking, reaching out before they could be separated, grabbing onto Threx's arm. Good, Threx said, you are learning quickly. The human exhaled. I have no idea what I'm doing. Yet you succeed regardless. The trial continued, the chamber altering its patterns, increasing the difficulty, but somehow they adapted. The human began to anticipate Threx's movements, and Threx responded to theirs as if they were two parts of the same whole. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the chamber powered down, gravity reasserting itself as they dropped lightly onto the platform below. Threx turned to them, their plates glowing softly. You performed exceptionally well. The human let out a breath. Well, I guess that means we passed, right? Correct, we are ready for the final stage. The humans sat on the floor of the chamber, still catching their breath as the weight of what they had just done settled over them. They had expected chaos, confusion, maybe even failure. But instead, something had clicked. The way their body moved with Threx, the way their instincts had taken over, it felt natural, like something inside them had been waiting for this moment without them even realizing it. So the human said, after a long moment, "I guess that means we're in the final stretch. Now what happens in this last stage? Am I supposed to make some kind of vow or recite an oath?" Threx studied them, their bioluminescent plates, shifting through deep hues of violet and blue. This stage is different from the others. It is not a test of action, but of acceptance. The human frowned. Acceptance. Threx nodded. In the final stage of the bond, both individuals must acknowledge their choice fully and without hesitation. It is the moment where we decide without uncertainty whether we wish to complete the ritual or step away. Once the bond is solidified, it is permanent. There is no reversal. The human swallowed, suddenly aware of the weight behind those words. No turning back, no second chances. The idea of something so permanent, so absolute, made their heart race, but at the same time they knew they had already come this far. They had trusted Threx through every stage, have followed every strange and unfamiliar step of this ritual, and somehow through it all they had never truly doubted. "And if I say yes," the human asked, voice quieter than before, "what actually happens? Do we just shake hands? And it's official, or is there some kind of weird alien magic involved?" Threx's mandibles twitched in something like amusement. "There is no magic, only the final alignment of our frequencies at this stage. Our bond will be fully formed. It will connect us in ways beyond words. Emotions will become clearer. Presence will be felt even at a distance. We will know when the other is in need." The human exhaled, running a hand through their hair. "You're saying, I'll be able to feel your emotions?" "To a degree, yes. It will not be invasive, merely an awareness, a presence in the background of your mind, a constant connection." The human hesitated, thinking about what that would mean, what it would mean to never truly be alone, to always have someone there, not just physically but mentally, emotionally. Threx tilted their head, sensing the hesitation. "I will not be offended if you choose to walk away." The human looked up, meeting Threx's gaze, their glowing eyes steady, patient. No pressure, no demand, just quiet understanding. And in that moment, the human realized that was what made the decision easy. It wasn't about being forced into something unfamiliar. It wasn't about obligation. It was about choice. And for the first time in a long time, they felt that they were making a choice that truly mattered. A small smile tugged at the corner of their lips. "Well, I guess it's a good thing I'm not walking away then." Threx's plates pulsed with a deep, rich blue. "Then we proceed." The Silthari stepped forward, reaching out one clawed hand. The human hesitated only for a second before placing their own hand against Threx's. The contact was light, but the effect was immediate, a deep hum vibrating through their bones, not just physical, but something deeper, something resonant. The human inhaled sharply as warmth spread through their chest, a sensation unlike anything they had felt before, like a string being pulled taut between them and Threx, stretching beyond the limits of the physical world, a connection forming in real time. Threx's voice was steady as they spoke. "The bond is formed." The human let out a slow breath. "So that's it, it's done." Threx nodded. "It is complete, we are bonded." The human stared at them, their hearts still racing. They had no idea what came next. But for the first time in a long time, they weren't afraid of the unknown. The human stood still, hand still resting against Threx's clawed fingers, as the resonance settled around them. The hum that had once been distant and strange now felt like a natural part of them, like something that had always been there waiting to be awakened. They took a slow breath, feeling the warmth still lingering in their chest. And when they looked up, Threx was watching them with an expression they were only now beginning to understand. So the human said, voice quiet, "That's it, it's really done." Threx nodded, their plates shifting to a steady, deep blue. "We are now bonded, our frequencies are fully aligned, our connection is permanent." The human swallowed. It felt like they should say something profound, something meaningful, but all they could do was stare at Threx as the weight of those words settled in their mind. Permanent, no turning back, no uncertainty, just this. They pulled their hand back slowly, fingers tingling from the lingering resonance. "So what now? Do I suddenly start hearing your thoughts or feeling your emotions every second of the day?" Threx's mandibles twitched in what the human recognized as amusement. "It is not so invasive. You will not hear my thoughts, only sense my presence. A subtle awareness of my state of being. When emotions are strong, the connection will be clearer, but it will never override your own mind." The human exhaled, rubbing the back of their necks. "So basically, I've got an emotional Wi-Fi signal connected to you now." Threx's plates flickered with quiet amusement. "That is an interesting way to phrase it, but not entirely incorrect." The human let out a breath of laughter. "I guess that's not the worst thing to have." They fell into silence, then the air between them charged with something unspoken. For the first time, the human truly felt it, the bond, not just as a concept, but as something real. Threx wasn't just standing there across from them. They were present in a way that went beyond sight or sound, a quiet, steady certainty in the back of their mind, like knowing where the sun was even with their eyes closed. Threx took a step closer, their movement slow, deliberate. "How do you feel?" The human blinked, trying to find the right words. "I feel different, but not in a bad way. It's like I'm more aware of you, like I could tell if you were in the room, even if I wasn't looking." Threx nodded. "That is the nature of the bond. Over time, the awareness will become second nature. You will not have to think about it. It will simply be." The human hesitated. "So what happens if we get separated? What if I'm on the other side of the station or on another planet?" The bond remains. Distance does not break it, but the clarity may fade. Slightly strong emotions will still resonate across great distances. The human swallowed. "So if something happened to you, I'd know." "Yes. And I would know if something happened to you." The human exhaled. "Okay, no pressure or anything." Threx tilted their head, studying them. "And do you regret it?" The human looked at them, really looked at them, at the glow of their bioluminescent plates, a quiet patience in their gaze, a certainty in their stance, and they realized without hesitation, "No, I don't regret it." Threx's plates pulsed with soft light. "Then we move forward together." The human nodded, not knowing what the future would bring, but somehow, for the first time in a long time, they weren't afraid of it. The humans sat in their quarters, staring at their reflection in the small metal mirror, trying to understand why they felt so different. Even though nothing about their appearance had changed, they lifted a hand, flexed their fingers, felt the same skin, the same bones, the same body, but something inside them was undeniably altered. A presence, a connection, not invasive, not overwhelming, just there like a quiet hum at the back of their mind, steady, warm, constant. They exhaled, leaning forward, pressing their hands against the cool surface of the table in front of them. They weren't alone anymore. Not really. Even when they were sitting here by themselves, they could still feel it. Feel Threx. A soft chime broke their thoughts, and before they could even process the movement, their body was already reacting, standing, walking to the door, opening it, and finding Threx standing there. The human let out a breath of laughter. "I knew it was you before I even checked." Threx inclined their head. "That is expected. Your awareness is growing." The human leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "And what brings you here? Checking to see if I haven't run away screaming yet." Threx's bioluminescent plates flickered amusement. "No, I merely wish to confirm your well-being. The bond is new. Adjustments take time." The human hesitated, eyes searching Threx's face, taking in the way they stood, the calm certainty, the unshaken presence that had somehow become familiar. "You don't feel different, do you? I mean, you've probably done this bond thing before, so this isn't new to you." Threx studied them for a moment, then stepped forward until they were close enough that the human could feel the faint warmth radiating from them. "No, you are mistaken. This is new for me as well." The human blinked. "Wait, what?" Threx's mandibles shifted. "This is my first bond." The words hit harder than the human expected, something in their chest tightening. "You never told me that. I assumed you'd done this before." Threx shook their head. "I did not feel the need to correct your assumption. It would not have changed the outcome." The human swallowed, suddenly feeling the weight of what they had both just done. This wasn't just some casual agreement, some simple connection. This was permanent. And they were the first for Threx, just as Threx was the first for them. They let out a shaky breath. "So what happens now?" Threx's glowing eyes met theirs. "Now we learn together." The human laughed softly, shaking their head. "Learning sounds like a fancy way of saying we figure things out as we go." Threx's plates pulsed. "That is an accurate description." They stood there for a moment, the silence between them no longer empty but full, charged with something neither of them had the words for yet. Finally, the human exhaled, stepping back and gesturing for Threx to come inside. "Well, if we're gonna figure things out, we might as well start now. Come in." Threx stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the room, and as the door slid shut behind them, the human realized something. They weren't afraid of what came next, because for the first time in their life, they weren't facing it alone.